Hey guys, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name's Steph. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite genres, and that is horror. Trigger warning for a lot of things that I'm going to talk about in this video because tokyoghoul is a horror manga. There is a lot of mutilation, there is a lot of body horror. I read volumes 1 through 14 of tokyoghoul. If you've never seen tokyoghoul before, tokyoghoul is an anime and manga series focused in a world where there are creatures called ghouls. Ghouls are alternate versions of humans, except humans are prey for ghouls in this world. However, humans are the dominant race, and so ghouls need to live underground. It centers around this college student named Kaneki. Kaneki is a young college student, and he loves reading and is very intelligent. He's also very shy at the beginning of the book. But he ends up getting a date with this girl that he's had his eye on, only to find out that she is a ghoul. When she tries to make a meal out of him, he and her both end up being part of this tragic accident, and then when he wakes up from surgery, he's half ghoul. Now, I'm not going to be reviewing the show and the series in this video. This video is about the differences between the anime and the manga. So if you've watched the anime and you're interested in knowing what's the difference between that and this manga, let me tell you that usually I don't go back and read manga after watching the anime of something, just because I kind of already know what the story is, but I will go and watch an anime after reading the manga. However, when watching the anime, everyone who's watched the anime will know that season 2 tokyoghoul Route A has nothing to do with the story. So after doing quite a bit of research, I came to find out that the anime did not follow the manga at all. It intrigued me to read this, and let me tell you, this is completely different from the show. So if you still want to read the manga, and you don't want to be spoiled, you might not want to watch this. However, you think that it won't matter because the manga is so different from the show and you might still want to watch the show, then this will be a fun video. So first thing I want to talk about is Ken's personality. As he goes through the show, he ends up developing these split personalities because of different traumas that he goes through. And one of the personalities that he has takes the form of Rize, who is the ghoul who first tried to eat him. However, in the manga, she doesn't play as much of a significant role other than the fact that she was the source of his organ transplant, and which caused him to become a one-eyed half ghoul. In the anime, we have many different encounters. We see many different glimpses of his subconscious speaking to Rize, giving rationale behind his need to feast when he clearly doesn't want to because he knows what it's like to be human. However, in the manga, he gets much more support from supporting characters rather than confronting this within himself. One huge difference is the explanation into what exactly is kagune and where do quinke come from. In the manga, in volume 6, we get a complete explanation of how kagune work. We learn that kagune are actually an organ that comes out of different parts of the back of a ghoul, depending on what kind of ghoul that is. There are 4 different classifications. The 4 different types of kagune are ukaku, kokaku, rinkaku, and baikaku. Ukaku come out of the top part of your back and are usually in the shape of wings or something like that, hence the kind of kagune that Toka and her brother Ayato have. They're usually lightweight, and these kinds of ghouls have exceptional speed. They're able to throw projectiles out of their wings. The next type is kokaku. Kokaku comes out of the shoulder area and usually is in the form of a melee weapon or a shield. Kokakus are extremely heavy and so are the most difficult to use. Rinkaku are what our protagonist Kaneki gets from Rize, and that is these tentacle, scale-like organs that come out of the middle of the back. Wielders of Rinkaku have power regenerative abilities and are one of the more powerful types of ghouls. They have the ability to change the shape, I think, of their kagune. The last type is called a baikaku. A baikaku come out of the lower back near the tailbone and kind of have a tail-like appearance. These kagune are known for their durability. The only way of getting a different kind of kagune is if you end up developing a kakuja. A kakuja is only developed by ghouls who are cannibals, and so in eating other ghouls, they end up getting their RC cells and strengthening their abilities. You would know a kakuja if you saw one because it takes on the shape of a kind of armor. There are rare chances where a ghoul can be born with multiple types of kagune, and in that case, they are a chimera. However, this is very rare and only happens a handful of times in the series. So how do investigators end up creating quinke, which are portable weapons created out of the kagune of ghouls that were killed? Well, it turns out that there's this kind of organ in the back of the ghoul, this kind of area where the kagune are transformed from inside the back of the ghouls. And so once a ghoul is killed, the dove is then able to collect that sack, if you will, and bring it back to the CCG headquarters, and it will be transformed into a usable kagune by a human, also called a quinke. Why couldn't we get that kind of explanation in the anime? It would have made things so much more simple. For the first few volumes, a lot of things are very similar, but it's more towards the second half of the manga series that things really pick up and are drastically different. During the Hinami investigation, when the doves were going after Hinami and her mom, Toka and Kaneki tried to steer the doves off of Hinami's path. And to do that, they kind of put on the disguises and went to the CCG headquarters, which is the investigation headquarters of kind of like the ghoul police. And they were going there to give some false tips. However, when they got there, they came to realize that there were these scanners that they would have to go through that would pick up on their RC cells. RC cells are the cells within a ghoul's body that are different from humans, and so if they were to go through these detectors, almost like metal detectors, that they would go off and everyone would know that they were ghouls. That was a clear difference because in the anime we didn't see the introduction of RC scanners until later on in season 2. So Toka and Kaneki end up running away from that situation. Now we're going to fast forward. The Battle of Cochlea, if you're familiar with it, it's one of the biggest battles in the tokyoghoul anime, doesn't happen in the manga. Maybe it happens in Re. I haven't read the manga, second season, anime, third season. But that battle doesn't really happen. The more focus of the manga is the battle on Aogiri-Tree's headquarters and also the Battle of Anteku. In the anime, when Aogiri-Tree busts into Cochlea, which is the ghoul prison, Kaneki ends up confronting this ghoul named Sachi. Or Shachi? Shachi, I think it is. He ends up confronting him and they get into this huge battle. We find out during that Kaneki has been practicing cannibalism and then it's been uplifting his powers. In the manga version, Hachi is escaped from Cochlea, and so we don't really get to go into Cochlea other than bits and pieces of conversations with investigators who are interrogating ghouls within that are confined. If you're a fan of the show, you know that Kaneki gets kidnapped by Jason and ends up being tortured. However, in the manga, it's vastly different because Kaneki goes by choice. Character Banjo is another ghoul who was in love with Rize. However, he doesn't play much of a role in the anime. He's like a very side character, but in the manga, he plays a huge role. He ends up becoming almost like best brothers. There's like a bromance between Kaneki and Banjo. And Kaneki ends up later on working with Banjo and his friends, and they end up escaping Aogiri-Tree and go and end up renting a house and kind of hiding out, and they're helping Kaneki figure out what happened to cause him to get these ghoul organs. However, they meet in Aogiri-Tree, and that's when they become friends, and Kaneki agrees to help them escape, but in doing so ends up getting caught by Jason. And when Jason wants to take the other ghouls as prisoners to torture them as a sacrifice, Kaneki says, no, take me in their place. So he willingly goes with Jason into the torture chamber. The events in the torture chamber are pretty much exactly what happened in the anime, and then Jason also becomes later on one of his split personalities. Hide in the anime is known as being Kaneki's best friend from college from when he was human. Later on in the anime, Hide does become active in the CCG, however he's much more active in the manga. In the manga, when he's later on in his college years, he ends up getting an internship at the CCG, and we later on find out that because he has been showing interest in making these connections to the doves, he piques their interest and they decide to bring him on as an assistant investigator. He's doing all this to be able to find Kaneki, his best friend. He knows that he's missing and he believes that something is up, but he works very closely with investigator Akira and investigator Amon in finding Kaneki. He knows that Kaneki got the surgery and is alive, but Kaneki decided to go missing because he didn't want to risk being around his friend as a ghoul and potentially eat him. So he went missing, but also the doctor who performed the surgery went missing. So that's when they start to believe that there's a connection. The manga has much more focus on the doctor and Kaneki finding out who did this to him. The anime barely touches on that at all, maybe not even until the end. We find out early on in the manga when Kaneki is talking to the heads of Aogiri Tree who are keeping him there. The head of one of the heads is named Arata. He tells Kaneki about the experiments that Dr. Kano was performing in creating these half-ghouls, and then later on, after the battle of Aogiri Tree, after he's been tortured from Jason, his friends from Anteku come to save him, and that's when he decides that he's not going to go back to Anteku, that he needs to find out who did this to him and stop them from creating all of these half-ghouls. He figures they're probably doing it to others. In the anime, Kaneki leaves with completely different intentions. He leaves to go join Aogiri Tree because he doesn't want this ghoul gang to focus on attacking his friends at the safe haven of Anteku, versus in the manga, he clearly is leaving to go stop the doctor from doing this to more people, and it has nothing to do with him wanting to divert Aogiri Tree's attention. He also finds out from Arata that there are multiple one-eyed ghouls, half-ghouls like him, including the characters that we will learn of later on called Sho and Ko, which are twin sisters who work with the Dr. Kano. There's also a lot of talk in in the anime about the one-eyed ghoul king, the one-eyed king. We don't hear about the one-eyed king until about the end of season 2, middle of season 3. In the manga, they start talking about the one-eyed king very much more early on. And so it doesn't feel like this kind of ghoul theory that's just thrown in there for no reason. Also, from the beginning, there's a lot more background history as to what happened to the ghouls. We get a glimpse of the underground tunnels and how the ghouls used to live underground in order to hide from the humans, but it doesn't give us anything more than that, because it focuses so much on Yomo training Kaneki in his new body and being able to fight and use his kagune, which are his ghoul weapons, his tentacles, if you will. In the manga, it's Toka who ends up being his trainer, and so that begins to build their relationship, which later on, as we all know, blooms into a romance. And so there's a lot more effort put in between Kaneki and Toka's relationship being built within the manga than in the anime. One of my favorite moments from this manga was when Kaneki pulled a Vegeta time capsule moment. So when Kaneki fought Shachi in the street, he realized that Shachi knew a lot of martial arts, and he understood that he needed to get better, otherwise he wouldn't be able to take on everyone that he needed to fulfill his goal. So he ends up locking himself in his room and reading tons of books on martial arts and training himself. And so we see Kaneki develop more as a martial artist in the manga, and that hit me really close to home because Vegeta is bae. We also get a lot of glimpses of Kaneki actually growing as a leader and talking to his friends that are living with him about battle plans and how to handle the doves, how to handle Aogiri Tree, and how to find Dr. Kano. There's also quite a bit of time spent with Kaneki actually finding Dr. Kano. So the battle at the laboratory is extremely important here, and that does not happen at all in the anime. I would say where they had put in the anime the battle of Cochlea, that is erased, and the battle at the laboratory is more important here. Kaneki finds Dr. Kano's house and goes there to confront him. Aogiri Tree is also looking for Dr. Kano because they want to use his services, and also the doves have been tipped off as to Dr. Kano's whereabouts. And so there's this huge battle that ensues. You find out about RC cell walls. Where did those come from? Those were not mentioned at all in the anime. I would think that it's important to mention that within Tokyo underground there are walls made of meat that are alive. In the anime, Hinami ends up going to the book signing of Kaneki's favorite author, which is Eto. She goes there to get a signed book for Kaneki to make him feel better. However, in the manga, Kaneki actually goes with Hinami because they enjoy reading those books together and end up meeting Eto at the same time. In the manga, it's actually Hide who goes to the book signing, remembering that this was Kaneki's favorite author and requesting a signed copy for his best friend. It is here that we also first hear about the one-eyed ghoul, or the one-eyed king, because Eto is writing the story about the one-eyed king, which again is not mentioned at all until the 3rd season of the anime. There is a time when Kaneki considers going back to Onteku, but then he learns that the manager who runs Onteku and who he looked up to knew about the foundation and assisted in some way about the foundation of Aogiri Tree, this gang of ghouls that is kind of terrorizing everyone, and so he feels conflicted about that. I also appreciate that we got a lot more backstory on Yomo and Arima. My favorite character, Uta, who is the mask designer, the mask artist within the series who makes the masks for the ghouls. Can we talk about Toka's long hair for a second? I love Toka with long hair, just saying. Also, the story of what happens with the manager Yoshimura is completely different in the anime versus in the manga. In the anime, Yoshimura tells us the story from 3rd person about how he had a human wife and then they had a baby. When they were running away because his wife and child were targeted, she ended up being killed by those that were chasing them. Versus in the manga, he was ordered to do it because he couldn't run anymore from the syndicate that he was previously a part of. So he was following orders to kill his wife, and in doing so was left with the child. In both situations, he ended up hiding the child and sacrificing the child, hiding it under the sewers, and then running it away. So the story of Eto remains the same. However, I feel like we could have used a little bit more information there. I wasn't completely sure why he went through with the killing of his wife if he genuinely loved her, versus in the anime where they show that he made an attempt for them to run away together. Also, Kaneki does visit Onteku, and that's how he finds out to confront the manager, and that's how he finds out the story about Yoshimura. And then when he leaves, Toka follows him and she beats him up. She beats the crap out of him. And then later on goes back and beats herself up for beating the crap out of him. It just didn't make any sense. In the anime, she was waiting for him to come back for so long. But in the manga, she knew exactly where he was. And then when he comes to visit, she tells him not to come back. Like, girl, what's your problem? Big Mama, oh my god, poor Juzo. Like, in the anime, Juzo Suzuya, who is an investigator who was extremely traumatized and messed up after being a slave to some ghoul. His slaver's name was Big Mama. What he went through in this manga was twice as bad as what happened in the show. We know that Suzuya is a male, even though he has more feminine qualities, but we find out the reason for that is trigger warning here for mutilation. She decides that if she castrates him, that he cannot grow up and become masculine and become ugly. I think I cried. I really cried. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the battle between Kaneki and Arima. Arima is one of the top tier ghoul investigators. He has never lost a battle. The battle between Kaneki and Arima does not happen until the very end of the series in the anime. It is one of the last battles before we begin Ri in the manga. In the anime, Kaneki ends up winning the battle against Arima. They fight in this field of flowers, and Arima talks to Kaneki about the one-eyed king and the prophecy that was supposed to be fulfilled, and Arima ends up killing himself. However, in the manga, Arima almost slays Kaneki. The Field of Flowers, and this might be my misinterpretation. If somebody thinks this is different and has read the manga, please clarify me on this. But there never was a Field of Flowers, because when they show the Field of Flowers, Kaneki's also been stabbed in the eye by Arima, so he's not able to see. But we do see the Field of Flowers. However, when it pans to the overall stage where they're fighting, it seems like it might smell like a field of flowers to Kaneki because he's a ghoul, but it's actually a battlefield. So what he's smelling, the reason it's being represented as a field of flowers is maybe because it's enticing to him. But yeah, Kaneki ends up losing that battle against Arima. And that happens at the Battle of Anteku, and then we also find out that Hide was at that battle, tries to talk to Kaneki after losing the battle to Arima, and it leaves off with Kaneki possibly being dead, but can't be because we still need to read Ri. Alright guys, let me know what you think about the differences that I found between watching the tokyoghoul anime versus reading the tokyoghoul manga. I hope that you found this enjoyable, and I hope you have an interest in reading this. If anybody's read it and wants to talk about it, please check me out on my social links below. I would love to chat with you about this, especially about the part about the flowers. I'm still not 100% sure about that, but I kind of like my theory. I probably will end up doing a comparison of the tokyoghoul re-season to the manga. If you're interested in checking that out, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!